this seems kind of cool. Inside the medieval night, what people did after dark. What did people do? Sleep, I assume. But if there's a 10-minute video, there must be more to it.
Our modern world barely knows true darkness. Flick a switch and night retreats. But travel back to the Middle Ages and the setting sun didn't just mean dimmer light. It meant the arrival of a different world, a world half lived in a darkness so profound it felt like a physical presence. This wasn't a temporary power cut. This was the nightly reality for centuries. What happened in this forgotten half of existence? What fears, routines, and strange freedoms did the medieval night truly hold? Let's extinguish the modern glow and explore the authentic, often terrifying, and deeply unfamiliar world of the medieval night.
Crazy.
Chapter 1. When the world went black. Light was precious, often poor. Churches and the wealthy might afford beeswax candles, relatively bright and clean. For most medieval folk, they relied on smoky, greasy tallow candles made from animal fat. Or dimmer yet, rushlights, reeds dipped in kitchen fat. Indoors, the main light often came only from hearth fire, casting huge, flickering shadows and leaving corners in near total blackness.
But it's kind of cozy, though.
Indoor tasks, like distinguishing coins, became difficult in this pervasive gloom. Outside, the world transformed into a hostile landscape. Cities like medieval Paris or Tours weren't just towns, they were fortresses that bolted their massive gates shut at sunset, a nightly severing of town from country. Being caught outside meant facing unlit, treacherous streets, often slick with waste in the absence of proper sanitation.
What the
Historian
fuck?
Jean Verdon paints a grim picture, describing the narrow, winding alleys as cutthroat lanes, where an unwary traveler might easily meet a grim end. Accidents, falls into unseen ditches, tumbles from steps were commonplace. Even the night air itself was suspect. Many believed that noxious fumes descended with the dark, bringing sickness and plague. A fear historian A. Roger Eckhart has documented for later periods, drawing on medieval roots. Chapter 2. Demons After Dusk. This physical darkness was fertile ground for fear, both rational and supernatural. Night was considered the devil's prime time. Demons weren't just abstract concepts, they were believed to actively roam the world after dark.
It makes so much sense because, yeah, like, this is the time where most people were, like, religious, and, you know, the devil, the demons, the bad side of things is the darkness and all that. So, yeah, I guess it makes sense, you know, just don't go outside at night because it's very spooky.
Sometimes even physically attacking saints like Anthony in their cells, according to hagiographies. The night was populated by specific terrors. Ghosts, the revenants, were a major preoccupation. Were they souls needing prayers, like the spirits Saint-Germain reportedly encountered in a ruined house? Or were they malevolent, like the terrifying spectral army, described by chroniclers like Orderic Vital, believed to ride through the night bringing misfortune? Belief in werewolves was deeply rooted, especially in areas near forests. Figures like Burchard of Worms in the early 11th century addressed the common belief that certain people could transform into wolves, imposing penances for holding such views, suggesting how real this fear was. And witches,
Scary.
even though the great hunts came later, were already feared in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Early medieval sources, like those cited by Burchard, mention beliefs about women flying at night on demonic errands or participating in cannibalistic rituals. Ideas dismissed by the church elite then, but persisted among the populace.
It's always interesting, like, obviously, you know, us modern people right now watching YouTube, like, we hear all this and we're like, that's kind of silly. I can't actually imagine thinking like that, right? You know, it's kind of hard to, like, actually try to put your mind in a state where you would actually think like this, right? And yet, yeah, I mean, a ton of people definitely did at that time, right? And even today, I mean, there must be some part of the world where that's still the same, right? There's some part of the world where they still kill people for being witches. But, you know, it's just so hard to, like, really, like, relate to actually thinking of, like, the night as that scary. Obviously, you know, like, a lot of stuff like this tends to be At the night there's brilliant, safe, and killers waiting in ambush. So, it does make nice sky. And then from that, maybe parents start making tales about demons and witches to scare their kids to not go outside so they don't run into brilliant, safe, and killers. So, the kind of folklore kind of comes organically like that from like trying to maybe scare kids to be safe. But then like people start really believing it. And obviously, we all know that like when you're in the dark and in darkness, you can quickly, like your mind will quickly try to fuck with you by, some shape suddenly looking like someone or something, because your mind doesn't like not being able to see. And so it just tries to like fill in the blank. And that's why, often it's happened to most people, I assume, like when you're in the dark of your room trying to sleep, sometimes like something in your room, like a vest that you left hanging, starts to look like someone, because your mind is trying to fill the blanks. So it's easy to like explain it all, right? And yet I still have a hard time really imagining myself like at a time like this actually believing in a lot of these things being outside, Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
These weren't just stories, they were genuine anxieties reflected in prayers, charms like horseshoes found nailed over doors, and the avoidance of places deemed haunted after dark. Chapter 3: Locking Down the Night. Medieval society wasn't helpless. It developed strategies. Cities relied on high walls and locked gates. Curfew bells ordered people indoors, usually around 7 or 8 p.m., depending on the season, signaling fires to be covered.
Couvre-feu in French, yeah. Which I'm surprised because I had this impression of like tavern being open for like a few more hours at the night or something. Sorry about the noise. Not like closing at 7 or 8 p.m. or something.
The night watch patrolled,
Maybe it's later.
often consisting of reluctant citizens fulfilling a duty or poorly paid guards armed with staves and halberds. Accounts describe their varied effectiveness, sometimes diligent, sometimes notoriously corrupt or found asleep at their posts. Their job was less crime-solving and more maintaining basic order, challenging strangers, enforcing curfew, checking doors, and raising the alarm for fire or major disturbances. Laws reflected the heightened danger. Specific examples show crimes committed by night carried significantly harsher penalties, sometimes double those for daytime offenses, because the darkness implied malice and premeditation.
That's the wrong
Individuals
one.
secured their homes like miniature castles. Doors were barred, perhaps with simple wooden bolts or more complex iron ones for the better off. Windows were shuttered tight. Weapons, from swords for nobles to simple clubs or farm tools like axes for peasants, were kept within reach. Watchdogs were indispensable, their barks a vital warning system in the quiet dark. And finally, nightly prayers sought God's protection against the myriad of perils. Chapter 4: Bedtime Battles. Bedtime involved practical rituals against the night's threats. Securing the house was paramount. Then came the nightly struggle against pests. Advice found in texts like the 14th century Le Ménagier de Paris details methods for dealing with fleas and bedbugs using sticky traps, specific cleaning methods, or even fumigation with herbs. The hearth fire needed careful banking to preserve embers without setting the often flammable house ablaze. Chamber pots were the norm for sanitation, avoiding going outside at all costs. Most medieval people slept naked, making warmth a critical issue.
Really? I'm actually surprised by that. I did not know that. Okay. Naked medieval people.
Heavy blankets, furs, or simply the shared body heat of communal sleeping were essential. Nightcaps were common protection against drafts and cold. Before fully trusting themselves to sleep, prayers were offered, seeking divine safeguarding from physical harm, demonic influence, and terrifying nightmares. Jean Verdon emphasizes the importance placed on these nightly pleas for protection, sometimes invoking specific saints believed to have power over nocturnal evils. Children, often sharing the parental bed despite the risks of suffocation, might be soothed with lullabies that, while comforting, sometimes carried themes reflecting the life's hardships and the need for divine protection. Chapter 5: Waking at Midnight, the Lost Rhythm. Medieval
midnight.
sleep itself followed a pattern largely lost to us: segmented sleep. People typically went to bed early, slept for several hours in their first sleep, then woke naturally around midnight for the watch. This wakeful period wasn't typically anxious, it was a quiet interlude lasting an hour or more. Historical sources detail its uses: quiet prayer or reciting psalms, reflecting on recent dreams, intimate conversation with a spouse, tending the fire, or performing small, necessary chores like mending clothes or preparing tools for the next.
I actually wonder if this is like not a bad thing to have like a break in your sleep like that. Like myself, I'm not one to talk because I have terrible sleep. These days it's worse than it's ever been. I mean, taking like 3 hours to fall asleep and then waking up multiple times and like sleeping 3 hours max or something. But there's been time where like it wasn't as bad, and I would like wake up around like midnight or 1 a.m. to go to the bathroom, but then I would feel kind of like not that tired or something, so I would just turn on my PC and just start like reading Reddit or something, and I would do that for like half an hour or something before going back to sleep, and it didn't feel that bad, and actually like the next time I woke up I actually didn't feel that bad, so I always wondered like, like, is it such a good thing for people who manage to sleep from A to Z with like no interruption, not waking up? Or is there actually some kind of like weird benefit to, like a break during your sleep or something? I don't know.
Next day's work. It was a unique, still space in the night. Afterwards, people returned to their bed for their second sleep until dawn. This pattern, meticulously documented by historian A. Roger Eckert, was the standard for centuries. Privacy was a luxury few knew. Beds were often shared by entire families, servants, or travelers, especially among the poor, using simple
The fucking out of them just stacked on each other.
drop pallets. Descriptions exist of the different layers of bedding the more affluent might possess, from the straw base to wool or feather mattresses. The wealthy had large, curtained beds, offering status and seclusion, but communal sleeping shaped the experience for most. Chapter 6: Life After Curfew. Night didn't halt all activity. Essential trades like baking had to continue. Monks rose for their demanding night offices. While many craft guilds strictly forbade night work due to poor light and risk of shoddy workmanship or fire, necessity often forced artisans to labor late by candlelight, sometimes with special permission for urgent tasks.
I don't know how much it fucks up your eyes to try to read or write by candlelight, but it's probably like not that clear and you really have to squint and stuff like that,
Women's domestic work, particularly spinning and weaving, filled countless dark evenings. But night was also the primary time for socializing and release. Village meetups were crucial, neighbors gathering, often women, combining work like spinning with storytelling, gossip, song, and courtship. Records tell of young men sometimes visiting communal huts, hoping for romance, sometimes leading to brawls with local youths defending their territory.
What was in Japan they had like something called yobai or something, which was that, like the night visit or something. Yeah, I guess that's a thing in different culture.
Taverns, frequently ignoring curfews, were vital, often rowdy, centers for male community, places where disputes often began or ended.
So there was tavern.
Noble halls hosted late-night feasts and dances that could last till morning, sometimes ending, as one chronicler lamented about Charles VI's court, in drunken adultery. The darkness provided essential cover. It shielded secret lovers' meetings,
which again, like, you're afraid of the demon inside, but you're doing some kind of, like, what's the word for it? Sinful act. Yeah, I guess not everybody was that scared of the demon outside,
It allowed poachers to hunt in forbidden woods and smugglers to move goods unseen. It was when religious dissenters could gather safely. For many, night offered a temporary liberation. Chapter 7: Sacred Shadows. Amidst the fear, the medieval night held deep spiritual resonance. The profound quiet, the solitude, the feeling of vulnerability, these were seen as uniquely conducive to prayer and connecting with the divine. We find accounts of lay people, like the pious Queen Clothilde, rising during the night for private prayer, or nobles seeking out quiet chapels. Monasteries explicitly built their spiritual practice around the night, with the long vigils of the night office seen as a crucial battle against spiritual darkness and a time of heightened communion with God, chanting psalms in the near darkness of the church. For some medieval mystics, influenced by figures like Gregory of Nice, the experience of darkness itself wasn't just absence of light, but a potential path, a challenging but necessary passage through spiritual desolation towards divine understanding. So, the medieval night was a world shaped by profound darkness, filled with unique fears, rhythms, and adaptations. It dictated sleep, structured work, and community, and colored spiritual life in ways almost unimaginable today. Hope you enjoyed this look into the medieval shadows. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. Check out my sources below.
I mean, I don't know if everything is that different, you know, to an extent, some reasoning may be different, but I feel like, you know, in the end, people still kind of do the same, right? Like, you know, once nights start to fall down, people really close their door because they're still kind of afraid of people outside, you know? That's kind of similar, yeah. Hello Akumalu, what's up? I guess it's not that different in that way, but in some other way, yeah. I guess, you know, depending on which country, people are a lot less superstitious, you know? You're not afraid of the night because of demons, but because of people. A lot more, yeah. That's the main concern. I mean, it's a stupid thought, but you know, it's almost like a natural human thought that people crawling around in the dark outside at night are definitely up to no good, even though it's not really absolutely true, but that's kind of like the feeling that you get, yeah? That's kind of the feeling that you get. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. I never get tired of learning about medieval time. There's something so fascinating. I mean, there's many interesting period of history, but, you know, medieval time is pretty damn crazy. Best way I can put it.